Hi colleagues, this is Ruby Blow. I'm a licensed professional counselor here in the state of Georgia, and as many of you know, I have a practice called Development Counts where I do a fair amount of continuing education workshops for other mental health professionals, and I just wanted to share some information with you about what I think is probably my most important blog post to date. You can find it on my website at developmentcounts.com on the home page. Just refresh and scroll down, especially if you've been to my website before, and you will see the workshop. It's titled The Ethical Use of 1013s in the State of Georgia. And this is a really critical time to think about when we are implementing the use of a 1013, because a 1013 in the state of Georgia is a right that counselors have, that clinical social workers have, and that psychologists have, as well as a few other practitioners, and I list them in my blog post, to arrange for involuntary transportation of an individual to an emergency assessment. So basically, the 1013 is for transportation to the hospital for a receiving facility, for them to assess that person to see if they need to be admitted for a longer stay. And so if they are admitted and assessed to be dangerous to themselves or others, then that would be called a 1014. So we often tend to think of a 1013 itself as what is keeping the person in the hospital, but in fact, it's another document called the 1014 that would be used by the hospital staff, assessors, and specifically the medical doctor. The psychiatrist is the person who is permitted to use the 1014 form. And the reason why I think this is an important blog post and why everyone should read is because there are a lot of different forms with different numbers associated with this whole process. People have different rights as it relates to whether or not they voluntarily admit themselves into the hospital or whether it's done so involuntarily. They have rights to request to leave the hospital. They have rights to hearings about whether or not they will remain in the hospital. And I think there's a high risk factor for some of this to be practiced unethically. For example, you could be a clinician who is concerned about a client, but the client is not necessarily showing all the risk factors, the imminent risk factors to be admitted. And you could be, just afraid of them killing themselves. And so you use the 1013 form to get them transported to a facility where they may go through really a traumatizing experience just by the fact of the potential of losing one's freedom, right? So we don't necessarily tend to think of sending someone to the hospital as something that can harm them. And of course, the hospital is there to assist them, to keep them alive, and to provide that crisis stabilization. But it also can be very scary and traumatic for people to have the loss of freedom of being sent to a hospital for assessment. And so it's really important that we are really conscious of when we're using it, why we're using it, what the criteria is. The 1013 can help arrange for a peace officer to transport that person to the receiving facility. But it also could be for another individual, a family member or friend, to transport them to that facility if it's safe enough to do so. And then, of course, that 1014 needs to be handed over at the admitting facility. And then there's a time frame by which they need to be reassessed. So I really encourage you to read this blog post. I also want to remind everyone that I have some ethics workshops coming up. We're still in the renewal cycle. I know there's a lot going on. Everyone has a lot going on personally, and there's a lot going on globally, a lot of things that we're all concerned about. And at the same time, we're still trying to get our continuing education hours. So I do have an event coming up at Chris Kids. It's called the ACA Code of Ethics, an overview of the codes and their important themes. It's a 6-hour training. You'll get 5 CEs for that. So you can go to my website, developmentcounts.com, look on the community events page and register for that. And then on August 5th, I'm going to be doing a workshop called Ethical Considerations in Telemental Health Practice. It's going to be a 6-hour CE event. It's co-sponsored with the Georgia Society for Clinical Social Workers. It's going to be 6 hours and it will be held at Ridgeview. So you can find a registration link for that workshop also on the community events page at developmentcounts.com. And then I will be doing a 3-hour telemental health supervision training, and that's going to be on a Thursday, which is not typical for me. So it's going to be on Thursday, August 11th. That's also in conjunction with the Georgia Society for Clinical Social Work. If you're a counselor, you can register through my website, developmentcounts.com, go to the workshops page. And if you are a clinical social worker, especially one of their low-cost social workers, you can register through the Georgia Society for Clinical Social Workers website. So I have a link to that on my community events page. All right. And last but not least, I have a ethics workshop on August 26th at my practice, Development Counts. It'll actually be held at Childkind. That's where I hold my workshops. That's on Claremont near 85. And on August 26th, I'm doing another ACA Code of Ethics training that's really about all the updates from 2014, including technology. So it's not a telemental health event, but it is an ethics event. So that's what I have going on. I know this is a lengthy video. For those of you who have watched all of it, I appreciate you. And also a reminder that you can read my blog post at developmentcounts.com. If you want to get it in your inbox, you can sign up on the homepage at developmentcounts.com to get my weekly e-blast. And I also attach videos like this. So when you have opportunity, you can get some of these types of updates from me. Okay, take care, everyone, and I hope to see you at an event soon if I haven't seen you yet this year.